In this video, we're going to be looking over something pretty special here. This is a Minolta SR-T 101 single lens reflex 35mm film camera with the fast f1.4 lens. And this example actually has the camera and lens inside which match the serial numbers on this packaging. So let's get started looking at this. If we open the box, we can see on the top there's some literature here. And let's just look at quickly what that is. We've got an owner's manual. And now this has somebody's written a number on here, and it looks a lot like a serial number. This does not match the camera, so I'm guessing this was put in here later. But it is very similar to what the camera is because it shows in the pictures here the same configuration of this camera with the same f1.4 lens. So it is the appropriate one for this. Here's a warranty certificate, and again this has some serial number that has nothing to do with what's in the box. And then there's a couple of booklets here. This is about different lenses, and as I look here, these are lenses of the same period, so this is appropriate for this camera. And then here is a Minolta MC Rocker lens depth of field chart. It apparently just goes through all their lenses and shows that. And then here's a little instruction on how to attach the little pads on the strap links. So we'll set all that aside, but that's all included. The reason I'm going through all this is that this is going up for sale, and I want to have inspected it on video. And I want to also show this camera, the SR-T 101. I know this camera fairly well because back in 1979 I learned manual SLR film photography on the very similar Minolta SR-T 201, which was the descendant of this. And it's very similar, and we'll go through some things as we look it over. Before I open the camera, we'll just point out inside the box is a strap and a body cap here. And so we'll just set that aside. And now the camera is in a case. And I should note that this case is much nicer than the case that is with that old SR-T 201, which I still have. By the time they made that in the late 70s, they were making these cases out of material that did not withstand the test of time well at all. And that one is in terrible condition. This case is very rugged and still in good shape. So we can open that up, and we can unscrew it from the bottom and separate it from the camera. Okay. And so now we have the camera itself, and I'm going to take the lens cap off so we can see. This has the fast f1.4 lens, and this is just a really heavy duty, well made camera. And I'll just point out that a few subtle differences from the SR-T 201 are that this one has a that when you do the stop down preview button, it locks on and off, where on the other one, the later one, you just push it and then you release it. This one you have to push it twice, but you can stop the lens down and leave it stop down if you want it that way without holding the button in. And another thing is this one does not have a hot shoe, but it does have a mirror lockup control. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as the SR-T 201 that I used many times. I ran lots of rolls of film through that. So I know how to look at one of these, and let's get started and do that. Now, this camera is all mechanical. It's got springs and gears, and everything is mechanical except for the light meter. And so we can put a battery in the light meter here. And you just unscrew this little little compartment here, and it's nice and clean inside. And then we can take a battery and stick in here. One thing I should mention about these batteries is that on the SR-T series, they used this battery that is no longer available in the voltage that it was in back when these were made. And so unless you do something to compensate for that, if you follow what the light meter says with the new battery, your exposures will be off. And I know that from personal experience because I bought a new battery once for my SR-T 201 and didn't realize they had changed the voltage and thought, why are my exposures all so off? So that's one thing to remember about this camera. This one I did, so now here, now we've got the battery in there, I can flip this switch to BC. And before I did this, I looked through the viewfinder, and there's a little place where the needle comes down and rests right on top of a little square box, and that indicates that the battery is good. And so it shuts off when you turn it off. And I did also flip this then to the on position, and then pointed it at light and watched as I changed lighting conditions in front of the lens and the needle moved. So that is all working. But of course it's going to be off based on the exposure settings because of the voltage. So I'm going to just take that battery out so I remember to do that and screw this back in. And now we can get started looking over the camera. One of the first things you always want to do is see how well the shutter works. And so let's go through here. I'm going to step this down through the speeds from 1/1000th. Here we've got. And we'll wind that and go to 1/500th. I can tell I've got the mirror lock up in place there. Let's see about that. And take the lens off. Yeah, there's the mirror is locked up. There it's down. Okay. Just going to back on. Okay. Okay, there's 1/500th, 1/250th, 1/125th, 1/60th, 1/30th, 1/15th, 1/8th. And notice these are sounding really good in this lower range. Here's 1/4, 1/2. And as we look in here, we can see, now here's one full second, and watch in the lens and you'll see the blade stop down. And that sounded really good. I mean, let's listen to that again. So that's a shutter that's in really good shape. We've got one more, the bulb setting, where the lens stays stopped down and the shutter stays open as long as I hold the button down. And if I let up, then the shutter closes and the blades open back up. So one other thing we can do here from the front, I'm just going to set this to a random 60th of a second, and I'm going to try the self timer. And that you do by pulling this lever down and pushing this little button right here. And now if we just point that here at us, and we can watch the camera finish the cycle. And it did. And so that's showing that timer is in good shape. That sounded good. So let's take the lens off. Now we do that by pushing this lens release button here and turn that way. And now we can look in the mirror box here, and as I briefly showed before, this does have mirror lockup, which is sometimes useful if you don't want to have the extra vibration of that mirror happening while you're taking a picture. And so maybe you've got the camera on a tripod, you've already composed your shot, you lock that mirror out of the way so then that doesn't have to move. You can't see through the viewfinder, but you already got what you want in the picture. And then you go ahead and take the picture. So you can do that. And then when you're done with that, you can lower that back down. So that's kind of an interesting feature. And that was deleted from some of the later versions of the SR-T 101, and it was never on the SR-T 201, at least not that I've seen. Another thing that is important to check on these cameras is how free this aperture follower ring is. These sometimes get real gummy. Now this one is sprung over to the side really well. That's exactly what you want to see. That will make sure that when it engages with the lens here, it will communicate quickly and properly with the body what the aperture of the lens is set at. And while we have this lens off, let's just look. Let's stop that down, and here we can see quick, snappy aperture blades, nice smooth focus, and nice clicks on all the settings on the aperture ring. And if we open that wide up, and then we take a bright LED flashlight and look through, I see a very slight haze down inside there. It's hard to make it show up, and it's very hard to tell exactly what you're looking at with these LED flashlights sometimes. I tend to think they make things look worse than they really are, but I do see a little bit of stuff lighting up in there, and a few specks, and then there's some dust on the back I can see. That would probably just blow or wipe off, but it's not a bad lens. It's got a little bit of stuff in it, I would say. Now to put this back on, we align the red dot and the red dot and turn clockwise, and then it's locked back on. Now if we go up here to the top of the camera, we've already used the shutter speed dial, but there's another purpose for that, and that's if you lift this ring, then there's a scale here that changes, and that is your ASA or ISO scale, and so it's currently set at speed 400. Maybe you have speed 100 film. This one will go all the way down to 6 and all the way up to 6400. So you've got a wide range there. And then just set the shutter speed the way you want. This is a fully manual camera, so you have to look inside and adjust your shutter speed now here, and then your aperture here to get the little meter to needle centered in the circle, and then you know you've got what is considered a proper exposure based on what the light meter shows. If we open this up, we can do that by lifting up on the rewind knob, and we can open up the crank here. I can show that. Nice metal crank on this model. And pop the door open, and now if we look inside, you can see it's got a cloth focal plane shutter, and as we advance this, you'll see it pulls that across, and then as we activate it, it opened and closed very quickly. If we look over here, this is our film take-up area, and so as we wind this, film winds around this and turns these sprockets, and you'll notice that these sprockets cannot go backwards, they can only go forward when you're advancing it. So when you're done winding all of your film, you have to, before you can rewind it, you have to push this button right here, and then that will allow this to freely move back, and you can wind your film back into the cartridge over here by turning this crank this direction. And then when it's all done and you put you can then open the door, take that film out, and then you can put new film in, and as soon as you start to wind this one time, then that button pops out, and we just saw it do that. And this has a very nice film advance action, I think. One thing about the SR-T 101 is this little black tip on this film advance lever. Those will often break. They're held on here. Looks like a couple of little rivets or something underneath. And a lot of these cameras are found with this black tip missing. This one has it, and it feels like it's on there real secure, so it should be good for a while. One way that you can tell whether you've got a really early SR-T 101 or a later version is the type of screws. Now this has cross-point screws here. The very earliest ones had slotted screws. So this isn't one of the original ones. This camera was originally introduced in 1966, and this one would be somewhat later, probably around 1970, I suppose. So I think that's actually most of what I wanted to show about this, but it is quite an interesting opportunity to get a camera with the lens that's always been with it, with the box that has always been with it. And so hopefully somebody else will enjoy owning it as much as I have. And it's just something that I'm not going to use, so I'm figuring I should get it to somebody who will appreciate it. And it's a very nice, rugged camera, and it deserves a spot in somebody's collection or as a camera to use.